Happy 4th of July! Sasha does not like it at all. She's kind of having a chill out moment. I listened to a podcast called Unbelievable. It's premier Christian radio in the UK, and it's part of the Christian Thinkers Society, which is perfect for an ENTP who is a Christian. I highly recommend it. It's amazing. It's an hour-long debate, usually, and it will generally be between an atheist and a Christian, or two Christians who have opposing viewpoints. And that's why I am sitting here today. They had a very fascinating one about a month ago, maybe a little bit more, that I just listened to, called "Is Open Theism a Heresy?" I'd never heard of open theism at all. I was like, is that polytheism? That's kind of what I thought it was. Just to give you a general idea, it means that God doesn't know everything as far as the future goes. That God has ideas about what could happen, or he knows all the possibilities. I think there's one called Molinism too, and maybe that's the one where he knows the possibilities. And open theism says basically that God doesn't know the future, and that's why we have free will. And it also says that God isn't responsible for sin. It was debated by a proponent of open theism, and then he debated a Calvinist. So Calvinists say God knows everything, and everything was planned by God. And that means that evil, sin, everything was planned by God. God has to know everything because he's omnipotent, omnitemporal. I don't even know exactly, but God's everywhere all the time, past, present, and future. He doesn't exist in time, and he would then be responsible for sin and violence and death and, everything, because it all has a greater good. That's what the Calvinists would say, whereas the open theists say, no, man has free will, God doesn't know what we're going to do, otherwise what's the point of giving man free will? Sin is not from God. That violence and the evil in the world, it doesn't have anything to do with God. I discovered 2 days ago the comment section on Unbelievable's website. I heard them talking about it all the time, and I took notes in my phone all these times that I wanted to make comments, and I finally went and looked for it because I really wanted to comment on this. So I thought I would read my commentary for you because I think it's a really fascinating topic. I'm going to make 2 videos. The first one is just addressing the future. Does God know the future? And then the second one will be addressing, is God the author of sin or evil? So what if they are both right? There are so many contradictions in the Bible that seem to throw the notion that God either knows or doesn't know the future out the window. Bible prophecy clearly indicates that he can see into the future. When he challenges the gods of false religions to predict the future, he is asserting that he can see into the future. Because Jesus is the crux of humanity's salvation, it seems highly unlikely that God would take a gamble on giving Jesus a prophecy like the betrayal of Judas if he wasn't absolutely certain that it would take place. But what about those times in the Bible where God seems almost human? Take the story of Noah, for instance. And the Lord was sorry that he had made man on earth, and it grieved him to his heart. Genesis 6:6. God was sorry that he had made mankind. He felt as though we were a mistake. God cannot make mistakes out of sin, but this verse seems to indicate that he can make them, as man can, just as he can change his mind in the same way that we can. After the flood, God declares in his covenant to Noah, I set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth, and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you, and every living creature of flesh. And the waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the bow is in the clouds, I will look upon it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth. Genesis 9:9-14. God needs a rainbow to remind himself not to destroy us all when we piss him off. Certainly sounds like a father. Point being, God shows some very human qualities in this story, and throughout Genesis, really. It doesn't seem as though he foreknew the fall of Adam either. He was just strolling through the Garden of Eden. What? God walking around in a garden like one of us might do? Scratching his head and trying to figure out where those kids got off to. This concept, the humanness of God, blows me away. I don't know about you. Perhaps it has something to do with the nature of sin. Perhaps God had to learn how to deal with sin after Lucifer took down God's divine creation of mankind, and on day one, practically, just as mankind did. So as far as God creating man in his own likeness, we have free will because God also has free will. Maybe seeing into the future is something that God can do, but maybe he exercises his free will and chooses not to, unless it is vitally crucial in God's eyes that he does. For example, say you have a natural knack for picking locks. You could walk around your neighborhood, pick a lock on every door, and have a look around. Not because you want to take anything, but because you're curious about what's inside. You don't, though, because you don't feel that it's right. However, say you wake up one night and see that your neighbor's house is on fire, and you know the entire family is trapped inside. In this case, you would have zero qualms about picking that lock ASAP. You exercise your free will and use your special skill in this instance, because if you don't, they will certainly meet the fate of being burned alive. As a bit of an aside, if you don't pick the lock and the family dies, you will feel morally responsible for their deaths. Perhaps God feels morally responsible for our fall, because he cast Lucifer out of heaven, and Lucifer turned a bad situation worse by using it as an opportunity to trap us, God's creation, in this burning house we like to call Earth. It is up to us to exercise our free will to run out the open door, or stay inside and go down with the burning ship. It's just a theory, of course. I think there are many things about the Bible that we will just never know for sure, and as hard of a pill as that is to swallow, especially for a society of thinkers, it just has to be okay. Cue faith. That said, I don't think it can be possible to proclaim something as a heresy unless it came directly and specifically from the mouth of God himself. Jesus' top 2 hit list. 1. Love God. 2. Love your neighbor. Matthew 22, 36 through 40, Mark 12, 30 and 31, Luke 10, 27 and 28. We are here to love each other and help each other as an extension of Christ's divine act of love for us. God never gave a bunch of humans trapped in a burning house the authority to judge or condemn one another.